There are three things that I would like to cover off with you today. First of all, an overview of the criteria and what makes up this latest version of CCA accreditation. And then look at the journey, whether this is you're looking at CCA accreditation for the first time or you've already been accredited and you've been accredited for a number of years. There are 5 steps for anyone who's looking at this that will lead to accreditation. So we'll talk through that process and what it looks like. And then finally, the benefits and reasons why organisations use the framework and become CCA accredited. When we think about accreditation and the drivers and the reasons why, for a lot of organisations, I think it can sometimes feel like quite a daunting process. So something that might take up a huge chunk of resource, or it might be like adding another activity onto an already overstretched team. But like a lot of things, when you break it down into bite-sized chunks, you realise quite quickly that it is very doable. So we regularly ask members, why do you adopt the framework? What has driven this decision? What outcomes are you seeking by going through the process? And quite often it's things like validation and recognition. So giving the customer operation an identity in its own right, putting the spotlight on it and formally acknowledging the great work that happens there. It might be something more strategic and it's been decided at board level that the business needs to achieve a formal accreditation, and that's also fine. Probably more recently, the process, I think, has supported collaboration and teamwork. With hybrid working the norm for probably between 70 and 80% of our members, then having something that brings teams together with a shared purpose and a shared goal can be quite transformational. With so much change and disruption and customers being more assertive, we need to make sure we have as many of the basic functions and processes in place. We can't afford to let things slip through the gaps. It really is crucial that if we want to develop and evolve our customer journeys, customer experience, we need to be confident that we have the basics in place and that the basics are being tested and challenged and continually improved. Only then can an organisation really start to look at how to implement change or improvements or transformations, knowing that service will be maintained at a certain level. In terms of the structure of the accreditation, for those that are familiar with it, you'll notice there's an additional module in this latest update. So in total, there are 8 sections or 8 business areas that come under the spotlight as part of the assessment process. We'll take a look at each of these modules in turn in a few minutes, but basically it's about putting the contact centre at the centre of the wheel, and anything that links in or out is put in the spotlight. Moving from version 7 to this update, I would say there's not anything in here that should take existing accredited members by surprise. So vulnerable customers, well-being, recruitment, absence, home working, these are all things that have been in the accreditation and they've been there for a number of years. But what you might find is that in some areas it's been expanded or strengthened due to the changes that we've seen over the past 3 years. And I think as a result of the consultation exercise, this is where a lot of this sort of insight has come from, and the reason why that we've decided to strengthen certain areas. So we'll start to take a look at each of the modules in turn. So module 1 looks at the bigger picture really and how the contact centre fits into the wider strategy of the organisation. We'll look at things like purpose, objectives, goals and strategy, and the role of senior leadership within that and their responsibility for supporting and understanding customer-facing teams. The criteria within this module has been enhanced quite a bit, and I think in a way it's trying to make sure the contact centre has clear visibility in the wider goals of the business. Within module 2, we look at things like recruitment, training, policies that support inclusivity, fairness, consistency, flexible and agile working. So whilst this was in the previous version of the accreditation, up until 2019, there were relatively few organisations who had a home working model in operation. Again, this section of the framework has been strengthened and focuses on making sure that colleagues have the resources to deliver consistently good service. They have the tools that they need. But it also looks at the capability of managers and how they have the skills to support and lead their teams that might be working remotely or might be working in hybrid environments. We also have some new criteria around working environments. So regardless of where you work, employees have access to the relevant systems and technology, and that their working environments and workstations are appropriate for the work they do and that they meet your expectations. So module 3 pretty much says what it does in the label, voice of customer. The focus here is really on how we engage customers. Are they aware of how to make contact and when? What are their options? How do we action any formal or informal feedback that might be shared by customers, and also how we take their views and opinions into consideration when designing new services. Customer complaints is a fairly big part of this module, or expressions of dissatisfaction as we call it in the framework, and vulnerable customer policy is also reviewed here. Another area I think that's been strengthened probably since version 7, there's a clear focus on the definition of a vulnerable customer and how well that is understood across the business, and also ensuring that vulnerable customers receive consistent service in line with other customers. So their requirements don't impact in any way the service that they receive from the organisation. With module 4, colleague commitments, there's not necessarily anything new in module 4, but there are a few key areas that have been strengthened pretty much in response to some of the recent challenges that we've all experienced. Unsurprisingly, attraction and recruitment, they're fairly chunky sections within module 4, and then there's a new section on supporting new recruits coming into the business. How do we introduce them into teams? How do we support them through that induction process? We also look at absence and attrition, learning and training, and also development and professional development opportunities. We'll also look at health and wellbeing in this module and how we support colleagues through the various initiatives or support programmes. But we also look at how you measure the success of wellbeing programmes. This is something that's come up a few times over the past year or so as part of the best practice forum. So there may be lots of different initiatives in place, but how well or how effectively are they, and what are they offering to colleagues? Module 5, so whilst it's quite a big module, the overall objective here is to ensure that there's a framework in place that provides security and mitigates any risk of disruption from regulation, legislation, and any other business threats. This module reviews what you will already have in place. So if you work in a regulated environment, you already have all of these certain processes in place. But what it does do is it just makes sure that there's no gaps that could potentially impact the contact centre. So it will evaluate against what you already do in relation to the kind of customer operation contact centre. With module 6, this provides a review of the critical relationships or the partnerships that you might have in place that impact the service or the functioning of the customer operation. So this could be in-house relationships with other departments, or if you have an outsourcing provider, then the framework will review all aspects of the relationship, from contract terms, objectives, strategic drivers, and the channels, the communication channels that exist between your organisation and that partner or provider. If you don't have any sort of kind of partnerships, then it doesn't mean that you can't do the accreditation. It just means that if there is a relationship, like a BPO partnership in place, we will evaluate that as part of the process. Module 7 looks at 3 specific areas: service strategy, service development, and service improvement. So we'll look at things like the ownership and the role and purpose of technology and how it's used to support customers. We also look at how to understand what active collaboration exists between IT development teams and customer-facing teams. So how do they make sure that what's being developed is actually going to support customers? And also what plans are in place for the development and implementation of new services, and how is customer feedback used to help shape any improvements that might be required. And then finally for module 8, which looks at forecasting and reporting. So this module focuses on how you identify, measure and report the reasons for customer demand. So do you really understand why customers are contacting you? And if your operation carries out any outbound activity, then does that align with the organisation's ethical values and business objectives? So that's a quick run through of all 8 modules. These are all available in a kind of full-size document. So if anybody would really like to go into a bit more detail of that, then please just reach out to myself or anyone in the team. We're more than happy to share the full document with you. So we'll now take a look at the 5 steps that lead to CCA accreditation, something that we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation today. These are the 5 steps that I think are the easiest way to achieve that accreditation. So I'm going to just go through these one by one. So that first step, operational review. The process begins with a collaborative workshop, and this is professionally facilitated by a qualified CCA global assessor who introduces the team to the benchmarks and measures that make up the accreditation. So all of the things that we've covered through modules 1 to 8, the assessor will take your team through every single element of that framework. The workshop is a crucial step in really understanding how your operation measures up against this industry recognised benchmark. The people that you involve in that, again, the assessor can give you some guidance on that, but you really do want to involve a broad group of people across the operation, and they will review and challenge your existing processes. As they do that, identify barriers and opportunities for improvements and any gaps or issues that would potentially impact your success in achieving CCA accreditation. The assessment team itself is made up of industry experts who are trained to review and evaluate evidence and to formally report on the practices that are in place. The operational review is really going to be your sort of indicator, and it'll also tell the assessor how ready you are and when best to confirm a date for assessment. So really by the end of that session, you will know what you need to do should you wish to proceed and move further up the chain. Step 2, you'll have a good idea. You've got actions in place, you've identified resource, all that sort of stuff. You can then agree a date for your assessment. The assessor will be in touch. Together you'll agree a plan, set out expectations for the visit, and he or she will be on hand to answer any questions, provide support and guidance, and just basically make sure that you're prepared and ready for their visit. Now, there's no time frame placed on you as a member to undergo an assessment or to achieve the CCA accreditation. You are in control of this process at all times. The assessment itself is the formal part of the process that leads to the accreditation. And the assessment team will do everything that they can to make sure that you're ready. Now, the assessment itself will probably take about 2 to 4 days to complete if they're on site. Over the last 3 years, all of our assessments have taken place virtually, but we're now starting to come back to in-person assessments. So again, that's something that the assessor will discuss with you. Actually, just going back to the operational review, that workshop is that kind of first building block on the process. Will probably take about 7 to 8 hours to complete, and typically we would split that over 2 days. So there would be 3.5 hours on one day, 3.5 hours on another day. Moving up to step 3, which is the assessor's visit and working as a team. So during the assessment, I think you really need to be prepared to engage the wider team, get them involved in presenting evidence. Use this as a development opportunity as well for people in the team. Use your staff to showcase your operation. The assessor will most likely want to see data files and information, listen in to calls, meet the team, have one-to-one time with key stakeholders, really to understand how the operation works. We will also carry out a confidential staff survey really to substantiate the evidence that the assessor has gathered. The survey is really designed to capture feedback, opinions and views from advisors and team managers. Okay, that's a kind of separate part of the process. But before the assessor leaves your organisation, he or she will present you and your leadership team with an overview of their findings over the 3 or 4 days, and also what their recommendations will be before that assessment ends. So when they leave you as a team, you will have a really good understanding and a good view of what they're presenting back to CCA. In terms of step 4, this is where the Global Accreditation Review Board comes in. Following the assessment, the assessor will produce a fairly substantial report, and this will be sent off to the Global Accreditation Review Board. This is an independent panel of members that have the final say on the awarding of the accreditation. So the accreditation is awarded by industry and it's created by industry. All of our assessors and members of the review board have signed non-disclosure agreements. So any information that's shared is always treated in the strictest of confidence. And any of the reports that are created by the assessment team never ever go anywhere. They're never shared with anyone except your own organisation. And then step 5 is the accreditation itself. The Global Accreditation Review Board submit their feedback in response to the report that they've received from the assessor. Their comments and feedback is then added into the original report created by the assessor, and then the final kind of formal confirmation of the outcome of the assessment is then sent to yourself. At no point would we suggest or ask you to book an assessment unless we were 99% sure that it was going to be a successful outcome. And following that, the team are really, at CCA, the team are really there to work with you, with other departments in your business, really to promote your success and agree how you want to present your success and your award, whether that's to your internal team or whether you want to go wider and announce that to the wider industry. So there's a number of opportunities that we offer to help you celebrate your success. All accredited members are invited to attend an annual VIP business lunch, which in 2023 will be held on the 1st of February. It's in Edinburgh, and Kay Adams will host that on our behalf. But it's an opportunity for you and your teams to come along, actually acknowledge what you've just achieved and collect your award. For those organisations that have held accreditation for milestones, as we call them, 5, 10, 15 and 20 years, then there are additional awards that are presented to acknowledge that kind of time frame, and that's done at the gala dinner. So the gala dinner for 2023 will be held in Glasgow on the 27th of April. And then you also have the opportunity to have your awards presented internally at your organisation. So if you wanted someone from the CCA team to come along and present your team with the accreditation, then we can do that also. We just need to kind of confirm diaries and get that booked in. So that's pretty much the end-to-end process. I think it's a fairly straightforward process. It's all about planning and making sure that you really understand, going back to what we started with, what are your drivers? Why are you thinking about accreditation? What is it you want to achieve from it? And at each step of the way, that assessment team or the assessor that's been allocated to you will support you with all of that. Any questions, any guidance, ourselves at the CCA or the assessment team are there to provide that support to you. So please, if you are interested and you'd like to take a further look or you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to get in touch with either myself, with Eva, who is our scheduler with all the assessments, or Katie, who's involved in the programme as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully we'll be celebrating your success very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nia Wales from Legal and General. We started our journey with CCA back in 2017. We wanted to be able to demonstrate to our customers that we were providing great customer service and that it met recognised standards. We looked at a couple of options, but CCA was the obvious choice. Its accreditation programme is written by industry experts, and the annual assessment process is that formal mechanism which ensures that we are doing what we say we are doing. The standard gives us a structure and a framework for us to work within, and it always helps us demonstrate to CCA, our partners, our key stakeholders, and most importantly, our customers, how we deliver our service strategy through our people. We always get great value from spending time with the assessor during the accreditation, because not only are they assessing us, but they also take the opportunity to share with us insights from other centres, which in turn helps us generate ideas or steal them to continually evolve our approach. There are so many benefits of the global standard. We are so proud to hold the accreditation, and we take every opportunity to let our customers know. We know that this gives our customers a sense of security when dealing with us, and our accreditation is always a source of interest when talking to prospective partners. And we know that this stands us in good stead because we can demonstrate that we've reached an industry recognised standard. From a colleague perspective, we all use the accreditation logo on our email signature. It's sort of a badge of pride for all of those who spend their days looking after our customers. And I think importantly, the accreditation has really helped raise the profile of the most important jobs in the company, and that's our frontline customer service team. We're passionate about continually improving what we do. So having the annual assessment helps us maintain that momentum, keeps us on track. Preparing for the assessment does take time and effort, but the benefits far outweigh the work. We've benefited so much from input and advice from CCA and its members on all sorts of topics, which has then helped us make changes that matter. So I would recommend anyone who hasn't looked at the global standard to do so. As well as the accreditation, there are loads of other benefits. Access to the CCA network, I would say, is priceless. We attend best practice forums and the Friday Coffee Club. And these forums cover a really wide range of topics, from recruitment to vulnerable customer to more recently, the menopause. Hearing how other companies approach things and their challenges and their ideas is so helpful, and it always feels like a really safe and supportive group that come together to help each other. We also regularly buddy up with members of the network where we want to focus in on something. So recently we've been lucky enough to meet up with the NHS Business Authority complaints team to share approach to how we survey customers. And we've also met with a team in Halifax who look after vulnerable customers. And that was absolutely fantastic to share ideas. Halifax gave us a great idea on wording for our IVR to encourage vulnerable customers to tell us how we can better support them. And we shared with them the bereavement training that we had recently done with crews. We get so much value out of the network.